Can you believe the man who lit up the universe was erased from history by our own hands? I'm a scientist who spent decades in labs fueled by ideas from the past. But there's a secret that keeps me awake at night. Henry Cavendish, the man who discovered hydrogen, the element that powers the stars, launches rockets, and forms the water you drank today, was abandoned by the world. He weighed the earth, measured the air we breathed, so why, in 2025, is his name just a whisper in the dark? Why was a genius like him buried, as if he never existed? Imagine this. You're on your phone, scrolling through humanity's achievements, unaware that this man laid the foundation for our modern world. We launch rockets, dream of clean energy, explore the stars, yet we forget the man who handed us the key. Isn't that unjust? I feel a pang, a shame, realizing we've let Cavendish fade away. He once scribbled in a rare note, "Truth doesn't need applause." But does truth deserve to be forgotten? Tonight, I want to sit with you, as if we're chatting by candlelight, to tell the story of a shy, brilliant man who changed everything, only to be left behind by history. What made him to choose silence? Was it his reclusive nature, the era's prejudices, or our own apathy? I don't have the answer, but I invite you to step into the 18th century with me, where a tiny spark ignited a revolution and a tragedy. Before we begin, if you're as outraged as I am about forgotten geniuses, hit like button and subscribe to Obscure Minds. Today we're here to uncover the life and mysteries of the man who discovered hydrogen, Henry Cavendish. Your support with a like and subscribe fuels our passion to create more high-quality content. Now, take a deep breath and step with me into the lab where history was forgotten. And from the quiet corners of history, Henry's story begins, like a spark waiting to blaze. And from the quiet corners of history, Henry's story begins, like a flame waiting to be kindled. Picture a young boy standing by a window in a grand house in Nice, France, gazing at the sea, his eyes sparkling with questions. That's Henry Cavendish, born on October 10th, 1731, into an aristocratic family with roots stretching back to the Norman era. The Cavendish family wasn't just wealthy, they were tied to dukes, earls, and even English royalty. But Henry didn't dream of castles or fame, he dreamed of the world's mysteries. Why does the sun rise? What makes the air we breathe? I was once a curious kid, tinkering in my dad's garage, and I see myself in Henry, a soul captivated by the unknown. Henry's mother, Lady Anne Grey, was frail, and the family moved to Nice for its warm climate. But fate was cruel. When Henry was just 2, his mother passed away, leaving a void that likely shaped his reserved nature. His father, Lord Charles Cavendish, a talented scientist and member of the Royal Society, became his guide. I imagine Charles, in an 18th century powdered wig, leading young Henry into an old London stable turned makeshift lab. There, amid glass vials and chemical fumes, Henry first felt the magic of science. A spinning wheel, a tiny spark, and the boy's eyes lit up. Have you ever had a moment that changed your world? For Henry, this was where it all began. At 11, Henry was sent to Hackney Academy, a progressive London school. It wasn't for lazy aristocrats, it was a forge for curious minds. Henry was quiet, often alone, watching peers debate philosophy and math. His teachers noted he had eyes always seeking answers. I've met colleagues like that. They say little, but every word is a gem. Henry scribbled constantly, filling notebooks with sketches and formulas, as if mapping the universe. At 18, he entered Peterhouse, Cambridge, a top European academic hub. There, he dove into math, physics, and astronomy. 18th century Cambridge was a clash of ideas, from Newton's laws to debates about light's nature. Henry studied relentlessly, but left in 1753 without a degree. Not because he failed, but because he was too busy with private experiments, too absorbed in discovery to care about academic rituals. I get that. In a lab, an unexpected result can outweigh any diploma. For Henry, science wasn't a destination, it was a journey. By 1766, at 35, Henry published his first paper, On Factitious Airs, in the Royal Society's Philosophical Transactions. This was a game-changer. He described a gas he called inflammable air, created by mixing zinc with hydrochloric acid. This gas was lighter than air, burned with a brilliant flame, and was unlike anything known. We call it hydrogen, the element making up 73% of the universe's mass, from stars to water droplets. In Henry's time, it was a miracle. Let me take you to his lab, where time seems to pause. Picture a small London room, Henry in a worn coat, carefully measuring acid drops. He recorded everything: temperature, pressure, weight. I've experimented with hydrogen, and I still recall the awe when it ignited. For Henry, it wasn't just a reaction, it was a gateway to a new world. Henry noted hydrogen was 14 times lighter than air, a figure so precise it stunned scientists of his day. He ran countless tests, sparking hydrogen with air in a sealed flask. The result? Water droplets on the glass. He wrote, "The dew seems to be pure water, formed from the burning of the inflammable air." This was 1766, decades before the world knew water as H2O. Henry discovered that hydrogen and oxygen, in a 2-to-1 ratio, form water, a giant leap in chemistry. But Henry didn't stop at hydrogen. In 1777, he studied the air we breathe. He found that exhaled air turns into fixed air, what we now call carbon dioxide. This challenged the era's phlogiston theory, which claimed burning released a substance called phlogiston. Henry's precision defied a generation. By 1785, he analyzed the atmosphere, determining it was 1 part oxygen to 4 parts nitrogen. With a tiny fraction, 0.8%, he couldn't identify. It wasn't until the 19th century that scientists named this residue argon and won a Nobel Prize for it. Realize this: Henry was a century ahead, with measurements just 1% off modern values. I've tested air in labs, and I'm floored by his accuracy, using only candles and crude lenses. Henry's greatest feat, perhaps, was his weighing the world experiment. In 1798, using a torsion balance designed by scientist John Michell, with lead spheres suspended delicately, he measured the gravitational pull between them. From this, he calculated Earth's density and mass. His results, published in experiments to determine the density of the Earth, were just 1% off today's values. He called it weighing the world. Imagine one man in a small room with simple tools, measuring the planet's mass. I've stood in modern labs with cutting-edge gear and still felt small compared to his achievement. Henry's discoveries were a flame lighting the future. His hydrogen powered the first hot air balloon in 1783, when the Montgolfier brothers lifted humanity skyward. His atmospheric analyses laid the groundwork for modern chemistry, helping us understand air, water, and life. His Earth-weighing experiment paved the way for gravitational calculations, from satellites to moon landings. In a handwritten note, Henry dreamed of a power source from inflammable air, as if he foresaw hydrogen as the 21st century's fuel. But that flame, so brilliant, was soon overshadowed by the darkness of the man who lit it. I've seen scientists dedicate their lives to discovery, only to be ignored by the world. But Henry Cavendish's story cuts deeper than any. He was a genius who lit the world with hydrogen, weighed the earth, and measured the air we breathe. Yet when I mention his name, most people just shrug. Why was a man who saw the universe's secrets buried by history? I want you to sit with me in the shadows of the 18th century to feel the weight of silence, a burden that rested on Henry's shoulders and perhaps still rests on us. Picture Henry, a tall, lanky man in an outdated coat, hurrying along London's cobblestone streets. He doesn't look up, doesn't greet anyone, his eyes fixed on the pavement as if the outside world is a threat. Modern scholars suggest Henry may have been on the autism spectrum, a trait that made him painfully shy. He spoke in whispers, his voice trembling, and would flee if too many people approached. At home, he communicated with servants through notes left on a hallway table, requesting simple meals like roast mutton. He even built a private staircase in his Clapham Common home to avoid the maids. One story goes that when a servant accidentally met him, Henry panicked and bolted upstairs, as if another's presence was a shock. Henry's shyness wasn't just a quirk, it was a wall between him and the world. In the 18th century, science wasn't just lab work, It was a stage where scientists debated, lectured, and flaunted their achievements. The Royal Society, where Henry was a member, held dinners in London taverns, where great minds like Isaac Newton or Joseph Priestley clashed over ideas. But Henry rarely spoke. He sat in the corner, eating quietly, nodding when addressed. A Royal Society member once wrote, "Cavendish was there, but like a ghost. He saw everything, but no one saw him." I've met quiet colleagues at conferences, but Henry took silence to another level. He didn't just avoid the spotlight, he shunned light itself. This silence came at a cost. In his lifetime, Henry published only 16 scientific papers, a small fraction of his vast work. After his death, manuscripts found at Chatsworth House, the Cavendish family estate, revealed astonishing discoveries. He studied electricity, predicting Ohm's and Coulomb's laws decades early. He experimented with optics, uncovering how light bends, and even explored magnetic principles. But he didn't publish them. Why? I think it was perfectionism. Henry couldn't tolerate error. A friend who connected him to London's scientific circles wrote, "Cavendish wouldn't publish what he couldn't verify to the last detail." I get that. In science, a small mistake can be magnified, but for Henry, caution became a cage. This perfectionism paved the way for bitter injustices. In 1766, his paper On Factitious Airs about hydrogen was a milestone, but he didn't chase fame. By 1787, Antoine Lavoisier, the famed French chemist, recreated Henry's experiment and named the gas hydrogen, from Greek meaning water former. Lavoisier was hailed as the father of modern chemistry, while Henry got a faint footnote. I'm not saying Lavoisier stole, science then was about sharing ideas. But don't you see the unfairness? Henry lit the flame, but another stood in its glow. The same happened with water. In 1781, Henry told Joseph Priestley that hydrogen burning with oxygen forms water. But he delayed publishing, wanting more tests. By 1783, James Watt published a paper on water's composition, sparking a priority dispute. Henry finally published in 1784, but the glory went to Watt. Henry knew the truth years earlier. He wrote, "Inflammable air combined with oxygen forms pure water." But he didn't fight, he just kept experimenting quietly. The injustices didn't stop. In 1785, Henry's atmospheric analysis, pinpointing oxygen, nitrogen, and a trace of argon, was a feat. But Lavoisier's chemical revolution stole the stage. The argon clue, hinting at a new element, was ignored until William Ramsay and Lord Rayleigh claimed it in the 1890s, winning a Nobel in 1904. Henry's 1798 Earth-weighing experiment, a masterpiece of precision, was only called the Cavendish experiment decades later. A 1787 Gentleman's Magazine article praised Lavoisier but ignored Henry. I choke up reading those lines. Henry did everything right, but the world didn't see him. Henry's wealth, inherited at 40, made him one of England's richest men, but it didn't shield him from isolation. He lived simply, wearing outdated wigs and coats, spending his fortune on lab equipment, microscopes, glass tubes, precision scales. He never married, had no close friends, and after his father's death in 1783, he was nearly alone. An acquaintance recalled Henry saying, "I don't need friends, the lab is where I live." But I wonder, in the long nights, did he feel lonely? Did he wish someone understood what he saw? 18th century society wasn't kind to people like Henry. London was a noisy city where fame came from showmanship. Scientists like Humphrey Davy or Benjamin Franklin knew how to charm crowds, but Henry couldn't. He was seen as eccentric, a peculiar gentleman by the elite. One story tells of a Royal Society meeting where, asked about his hydrogen work, Henry blushed, stammered, and left mid-sentence. My heart aches thinking of that moment. He held the universe in his mind but couldn't share it. The tragedy peaked in his final years. By the 1790s, nearing 60, Henry was a legend among scientists but invisible to the public. He kept experimenting, synthesizing nitric acid, studying electric fish, even measuring air's temperature. But he published less and less. Manuscripts piled up, brimming with world-changing ideas. One note showed he calculated electromagnetic forces before Michael Faraday. But he stayed silent. Why? Was he afraid of criticism? Or did he believe truth would find its way? I don't know, but I feel a deep sadness. This man saw further than anyone, yet chose to vanish. The world moved on. Lavoisier, Priestley, and Watt became household names, while Henry faded. But his light, though hidden, still waited quietly, like a flame beneath ashes. I stand here, in the light of 2025, feeling a deep connection to Henry Cavendish. He sparked the flame of hydrogen, weighed the earth, and measured the air we breathe. But he was also a shadow, a genius forgotten by history. As I share his tragedy, his silence, the injustices, the dusty manuscripts, I feel sorrow. But Henry's story doesn't end in darkness. His light, though obscured, found a way to shine, like a star glimmering through clouds. Today, I want you to join me in exploring his legacy, not just to honor one man, but to ask, what have we missed by forgetting geniuses like Henry? Henry Cavendish died on February 24, 1810, alone in his Clapham Common home in London. He was 78, and the world barely noticed. His funeral, a 9-day journey to Derby Cathedral, had few attendees, mostly Cavendish heirs who knew him as an odd uncle. No public eulogy, no newspaper epitaph. I picture his room with glass tubes, precision scales, and stacked manuscripts, now silent. But Henry's legacy, like the hydrogen he discovered, couldn't be extinguished. It waited quietly to be rediscovered. In the late 19th century, a miracle happened. James Clerk Maxwell, one of the greatest physicists of the era, was tasked with reviewing Henry's manuscripts at Chatsworth House, the Cavendish estate. Opening the yellowed pages, Maxwell was stunned. He wrote, "Cavendish wasn't just a chemist, he was a physicist, a mathematician, a man ahead of his time." Henry had uncovered electrical principles, like the link between charge and force, decades before Coulomb and Ohm. He measured magnetic forces, foreshadowing Faraday's experiments. He even studied temperature and light, with equations 19th century scientists struggled to grasp. But he didn't publish them. Maxwell called it a buried treasure, and I can't disagree. Have you ever wondered how far science could have gone if Henry had shared these ideas? Henry's legacy isn't just in manuscripts. Look around. Hydrogen, discovered in 1766, is the universe's lifeblood. It makes up 73% of the mass in stars, from the Sun to distant galaxies. On Earth, hydrogen joins oxygen to form water, the drink you sip, the essence of life. In his paper on factitious airs, Henry saw this, writing, "Inflammable air, burned with air, forms pure water." Today, as I stand in a lab watching a hydrogen fuel cell generate clean energy, I see Henry's shadow. In 2025, as the world races to solve climate change, hydrogen is our hope, from emission-free cars to carbon-neutral factories. NASA uses hydrogen to launch rockets, sending humans to the moon and dreaming of Mars. But how many know it all began with a shy man in a small London room? Henry's 1798 weighing the world experiment was another triumph. By measuring gravity between lead spheres, he calculated Earth's mass, giving us the gravitational constant, a number scientists still use. When I look at satellites orbiting Earth or spacecraft landing on Mars, I think of Henry. His constant is a compass, guiding us through the cosmos. In 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, he didn't know an 18th century scientist helped make it possible. But Henry didn't need fame. He just wanted truth. His 1785 atmospheric analysis left its mark too. He found air was 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, and 0.8% residue he couldn't classify. Not until 1894 did William Ramsay and Lord Rayleigh realize this was argon, a new element, earning a Nobel in 1904. I've analyzed air in labs, and I'm amazed by Henry's precision, using only candles and rough tools. Today, as we study climate, pollution, or even Mars's atmosphere, we walk the path Henry blazed. But Henry's legacy isn't just science, it's a reminder. In 1871, his family used his wealth to found the Cavendish Laboratory at Cambridge University, where minds like J.J. Thomson discovered the electron and Crick and Watson unraveled DNA. I've walked those halls, feeling Henry's presence in every brick. But I wonder if Henry had been recognized in his time, would he have inspired more? Would young scientists, held back by shyness or prejudice, have persevered with him as a beacon? A mystery haunts me. Henry's Chatsworth manuscripts hold unexplored ideas. He wrote about the universe's temperature, starlight, even a rudimentary energy theory. One note mentioned an invisible force in the air, as if he sensed electromagnetic fields before they were defined. Some manuscripts were lost in World War II. Others remain undeciphered. I wonder, what else did he see? Are secrets waiting in those faded pages? I feel a burning curiosity, like my first time in a lab watching hydrogen flare. We owe Henry a debt. Every time you drink water, light a lamp, or gaze at the sky, his work is there. Hydrogen in fuel cells, gravity in satellites, argon in bulbs, all bear his mark. But we forgot him. I don't blame anyone, but I ask, why? Was it his silence? The 18th century's love for showmen, or our 21st century rush, too busy to look back? I feel a quiet anger, not just for Henry, but for other overlooked geniuses. Women scientists sidelined, minds from forgotten lands, shy voices afraid to speak. Where are they in our story? Henry didn't need fame, but we need him. He reminds us that science isn't just machines or prizes, it's curiosity, persistence, silent dreams. I stand in his legacy's light, hearing a call. Remember Henry. Say his name, seek the hidden stars, for they're still shining, waiting for us to see. And from his flame a call rises, not just for the past, but for our future. And from his flame a call rises, not just to honor the past, but to shape our future. I'm sitting here, deep in the night, feeling like the universe is listening. We've journeyed far, from hydrogen sparks in Henry Cavendish's lab to rockets reaching the stars. He discovered the element that sustains life, weighed the earth, and measured the air we breathe. But more than that, he's a bitter reminder that even the greatest minds can be forgotten. My heart is heavy thinking of him, a shy, solitary man who gave us a world of possibilities. Do you feel, like I do, a twinge of guilt for letting his name slip into the shadows? Henry's legacy isn't just numbers or experiments, it's the flame still burning in every hydrogen fuel cell, every satellite orbiting Earth, every drop of water we drink. Looking at the world in 2025, cities aglow, dreams of clean energy, spacecraft bound for Mars, I see his fingerprints, but I also see a void. We use his technology, but rarely speak his name. Are we too caught up in the present to glance back? Or have we grown used to celebrating only the loud, those who know how to stand in the spotlight? I'm not judging, I just want you to ask, are we missing other geniuses right now in our time? Think of the Cavendish laboratory, built with his wealth, where scientists discovered the electron, decoded DNA, and opened doors to the cosmos. I've walked those halls, sensing Henry in every brick, every equation on a chalkboard. But he wasn't there for applause. He didn't need fame, but we need him. He reminds us that science isn't just awards or glory, it's quiet curiosity, late nights in the lab, resilience against injustice. And I wonder, if we remember Henry, could we inspire other shy minds, afraid to step into the light? Henry's story is a call to action, not just to honor him, but to look within ourselves. The past shapes the present, and the present builds the future. If we forget Henry, we might forget others. Women scientists pushed aside, minds from distant lands, young dreamers struggling to be heard. I feel a spark inside, a mix of anger and hope. Tell Henry's story, share his name, seek the hidden stars, for they're still shining, waiting for us to notice. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think of Henry Cavendish? Why was he forgotten? Are there other geniuses we need to remember? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone, and I know you feel something too. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone, and subscribe to Obscure Minds. Together, we can rekindle flames that have been snuffed out. Thank you for being here with me, in this moment, under a sky full of stars. Keep searching for the sparks that change the world. Until we meet again, keep your flame of curiosity burning.